Hey, how's it going? I'm Mari, or Taco Salad, and I hiked the PCT in 2019. Just before we start, I wanted to say if you're watching the vlogs and you don't want any spoilers, then probably don't watch this video now. Just wait and watch the vlogs, and you can watch this afterwards if you want. So I filmed a video before I went on the PCT about all the gear that I was taking. Now that I've used it all and I've switched out a lot of gear, I wanted to do another video just kind of showing you what I used, what I changed, what I ended up with, all that good stuff. If you want to know more about any certain item, I'll link everything below, so check those out. So the big three is sleeping system, tent or shelter, and then your backpack. So for sleep system, I used this quilt. It's 10 degrees Fahrenheit or -12 Celsius. It's made by UGQ Outdoors. It's a down 850 fill. There's a few different options you can get when you're getting a quilt. Mine, it zipped up this much, and the toe box just cinches closed with drawstrings. So it can open up to be just like a flat quilt if you want it to be. On the PCT though, I never undid this zip. I really enjoyed having my feet kind of cozy, and it kept it warmer. I thought it was really good. I'd never used a quilt before, so I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it or not, but I did like it a lot. One thing to notice is that it doesn't have like a big hood that a traditional sleeping bag has. I did opt in to get like an extra draft color here, which made it cozier, but I really didn't miss the hood. So if it was really cold, I would wear my puffy jacket to bed, and with the hood on, it acted kind of the same as a hood of a sleeping bag. But I sleep on my stomach a lot, so a traditional sleeping bag, the hood part doesn't do much for me if I'm on my stomach anyway. It has these snaps that you can snap in, so I'd snap this one and then put that over my head and it would be real toasty. And then it has these straps that I would strap it underneath my sleeping pad, and that kept it in place, and I could move around and throughout the night turn around and it would just kind of stay in place. Overall, it was a good temperature. I don't think I would have wanted to carry anything more. There were some times I was cold and I had to wear all my layers, including my rain gear, but that was only a few times, and sometimes I was actually too hot, so I feel like it was a good kind of in-between. I have nothing really bad to say about this quilt. I really liked it. The sleeping pad I used, I did switch. I don't have either of them with me now. I started off with a Sea to Summit. Nick used the same one and he liked his. He used his the whole time. Mine, I don't know if I just got kind of like a faulty one or what, but I just found it was really inconsistent. Like sometimes it would just, I would wake up and it would be on the ground like it had deflated, and then sometimes it would be perfectly fine. And I looked for holes, could never find any. So the first chance I got to go to an REI, which was in Agua Dulce, I took the Sea to Summit mat back, and then I ended up getting a Thermarest Z Lite. It's obviously not as comfortable as an inflatable pad, but I just felt like it was so much more useful for all of the rest of the time. It was just strapped to the outside of my pack, so anytime I wanted to sit down, take a break, just easily whip out the sleeping pad and you have a nice comfy seat. And sleeping wise, it didn't bother me too much. I guess, to be honest, I didn't sleep that well on trail in general. Didn't really matter which pad I had, I just didn't sleep that well. So it wasn't different, at least. With the sleep system, I did use a luxury item that's a blow-up pillow. This is a Sea to Summit one. Sometimes in the past I've just used clothes, you know, in a little bag and used that as a pillow, but I just never find it that comfortable. I feel like it's like weird and lumpy. This was like pretty good. I still don't think it's like that comfortable in my opinion. But I think it's better than not having it. And it's only like 3-point-something ounces, so I felt like it was worth it to have a pillow. But there were a few times when it got really cold, so one thing that I bought on the trail before I went out into the Sierra was this sleeping bag liner. It's the Sea to Summit Thermalite Fabric Reactor. So it's just like an extra layer, and it did keep me warmer. I did like this, and so I used it in the Sierra. Then I did get it back for Washington, and that was really nice because Washington this year was so wet and rainy. I enjoyed using it when I had it. Yeah, so that was pretty good. So I did the PCT with my boyfriend, and he was really nice, and he carried our tent. I carried our ground sheet, which is, almost the same size. No. For tent, we use the Tarp Tent Stratospire 2. It's not the smallest or lightest tent there is out there, but it's relatively light and small. I really liked that one for 2 people. It was really pretty spacious. 2 vestibules. It just uses trekking poles to set up, so that made it really easy. So it's not a freestanding tent. It's one that you need kind of to stake in, but we didn't really have a problem. We'd use rocks sometimes if you couldn't hammer into the ground. It lasted pretty well. By the end, the zippers were a little bit sticky and some of the edges, like the corners, were starting to fray. Just like the sewing was coming out. So we cleaned the zippers ourselves, and then I sent it into Tarp Tent to get like the stitching kind of all fixed up, and they did that, and now it's like good as new. So yeah, really liked the tent. With the tent, we used a Tyvek ground sheet. That worked really well. So for backpack, I'm not going to go too much in depth with the backpacks right now because I'll do a whole different video on just the backpacks. I'll just quickly show you what I started with and what I ended with, and then you'll have to watch the other video to get all the details. I started with a ULA Ohm 2.0 with the roll top. I liked it a lot. I used this for about halfway-ish, I think. And then I ended with an REI Flash 55-liter pack. I'll talk about that in another video. Besides the backpack, another thing that I always carried with me was a fanny pack. And I used this Waymark Gear fanny pack. Super enjoyed having a fanny pack with just stuff right here. What I always kept in my fanny pack was my phone. I put that, and there's like a little back pocket. Also my camera. I used a Canon G7X. I had a little mini tripod that I also kept in my fanny pack. I hardly ever used this. I did use it for setting up group shots, like selfies. That was pretty good. Oh, and I always kept my wallet in my fanny pack too. I just used like this little zippered wallet thing that I got from REI. On it I had one of the really small Swiss Army knives. It's the kind that has a knife, a little nail file thing, and then scissors, tweezers, toothpick. This was the only knife that I brought on trail, and it was actually all I needed. I did use it to cut cheese and maybe avocado, and I think that's probably all I ever used it for. I did use the scissors though. These were handy. Sometimes I needed to repair stuff. Tenacious tape is really good for repairing stuff, so take a little bit of that with you. But yeah, I used the scissors for that, and that worked really well. In the wallet, I just had my credit card, some money, my photo ID, my PCT permit is in here. I have a couple band-aids in here and some stamps. Anything I thought I might need easy access to. If anything, actually, I would say I would have liked a bigger fanny pack because sometimes this wasn't quite big enough. Okay, so food and water. So a lot of people always talk about what they changed along the way to make their stuff lighter. Like they start with heavier stuff and they switch to lighter stuff. Well, for me, I did a lot of research beforehand, and then so I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna try and get myself as light as possible. And then I'm like the opposite. I realized that some of the lightweight stuff I didn't like as much, so I ended up switching to heavier stuff. One of those things was my water filter. I started with the Sawyer Micro Squeeze, which is maybe like this big compared to this one. It's not the smallest one, it's like the medium-sized one that they have. In the beginning, that one worked really well, but then over time, it just seemed like it was getting slower and slower and slower, even though I would backflush it all the time. And then I think it was at Kennedy Meadows South, I think, that I switched to the Sawyer Squeeze, the big regular size one. So yeah, I really liked the Sawyer Squeeze. No real problems. Again, I feel like after a while, if you don't backflush it often, it does get kind of slow to filter the water through, but in general, it's very easy. I put a little sports cap on, the one from the Smart Water bottle. Oh, and tip when you backflush, make sure you shake it and hit it against something hard, and then the stuff will actually come out. I did have a problem that I found, like the O-ring always falls out. And then I saw something about getting these black ones. You can buy them online. It's made for like a water hose, but these fit in a lot better and they don't fall out. So that's a tip. And then, so for my food system, I use this Toke's 750 milliliter titanium pot. I liked it, no problem. It was big enough for me. I would get the 4-ounce canisters of fuel, and they would fit inside here, which is really good. For a stove, I use the BRS stove. It's a tiny little thing, really lightweight. And in this little baggie with my stove, I also kept a lighter, just a little mini lighter, and that's how I would light the stove. Oh, this is one thing I switched out. I started with just a bandana to wipe down my pot and all that. I ended up switching to a small microfiber towel in Rightwood, just because it actually absorbed water instead of just kind of pushing it around, and it dried quicker. So I liked that a lot. I also carried a Toiletries jar for cold soaking or just for eating out of a different container or having a drink cup. And if you want to see all the stuff that was in my food bag, I have another video about that already out, so feel free to watch that. Moving along, how about let's talk about electronics. I use this light AF dry bag. It's made from Dyneema. This was perfect for all my electronics. One thing that I did have is this SD card reader that goes into my phone. So this came in handy when I was transferring pictures, and then when I was editing videos on trail, I used this to transfer the video files onto my iPad. So for the beginning half, I had an iPad with me, and I also had an iPencil. If you've been following along, then you know that the iPad broke and I got rid of it. I carried a giant power bank. It's pretty heavy. This is probably one of the heavier things, but being able to charge all my stuff seemed so worth it. I don't think I ever ran out of battery with this, which probably means I could definitely have used a smaller one. But in the Sierra, when we were going the long stretches, it was enough, but it probably just barely. I used this to charge my camera, my Garmin, my phone, which is probably the most important thing. So along with that, I got an anchored charger thing, so it plugs into the wall, and then it has 4 USBs on it. So I did this because I thought once I get to town and I find an outlet, I want to be able to charge as much stuff as I can as quickly as possible. That was the idea. It is heavy though, so these are the sacrifices you make. Along with those, I carried, of course, cords. You need cords for all that, which is kind of annoying. And then I have another Light AF little bag. I like bags, if you can tell. I feel like when everything's just in a backpack, I just prefer organization. So this one though is it was good, a little zippered pocket, and in it I had extra batteries, a little microfiber cloth to clean my camera, extra batteries for my head torch I kept in here too. And then for SD cards, I just used this little plastic bag that I don't even know where I got. Before I left, I got a pack of these clear plastic SD card cases that actually I feel like are pretty sturdy, and they're super lightweight. So those were the electronics I kept in this bag. And then I also had a Garmin InReach Mini. I liked it. I never had to use it. Yay! So I can't tell you about how it works or not, but it was good because I kept track of every campsite that I went to, and then it was good to see the map. Oh, I did use it though also to send some messages to my family, and also like Bart and Party Tart, who we were with, they had one, and so sometimes we would send messages to them if they were like ahead or back. That's all I really have experience for it. I felt safer knowing I had it though. For a headlamp, I use this black diamond one, battery powered, and it's not like the lightest weight one out there, but I would keep it in my hip belt pocket on my backpack, and I feel like that weight isn't really weight that's like on your back, so I didn't care as much if it weighed more. But yeah, I like it. No complaints about it. It was fine. Now for kind of toiletry personal items. Two other things that I switched out for heavier things. So I started with just a really small little comb for my hair, just like one like this big and just real basic. I found that the little comb just didn't do that good of a job, and it was just kind of annoying to use. So in Rightwood, I believe, I switched out to this kind of brush. Some people I've heard of take out the mirror if they use this kind of one just to keep extra weight off. I found that I use the mirror sometimes, especially because I have contacts, so I kept the mirror. Another thing that I switched, so a lot of people out there, because they're trying to get their base weight so low, they take a regular toothbrush and like cut it in half. Maybe sometimes more than half, so you're just left with this little stump to like brush your teeth. So since I did a lot of research beforehand, I saw that people did that and I was like, cool, I'm gonna do the same thing. But I had just gotten like one of these travel toothbrushes that folds up like this, and then I took off the foldy part and just used this top portion. Now I found that I just really didn't like brushing my teeth with like this tiny stump. It didn't feel like I was brushing my teeth as well as I wanted to. I don't know, I just didn't like it. So then whenever I got a new toothbrush, I got another travel size one. I like the travel size at least because it's just small and I kept it in my hip belt pocket. That's a luxury item, I guess, is a full-size toothbrush. Go figure. But yeah, that's another thing that I ended up switching out for something heavier. Something that I carried the whole time was a little mini sunscreen. I would just get new ones of these whenever I ran out, but I would usually use something this size. Once we got to the Sierra, there were mosquitoes, so I ended up getting some bug spray, and this is just a little mini one, kept in my hip belt pocket. It did come in handy when I just really didn't want to be eaten alive, but I feel like this is something that you don't need from the start. You can get it in the Sierra or whenever you think you're gonna need it, but I didn't need it for the desert. So I use a bag like this that I put in all of my other kind of personal products. I have contacts, so I always had to have contact solution, and I would just get this in towns whenever we stopped in towns and I knew I needed more. I used this glasses case. It's like plastic and hard. I was really concerned that if you just have a soft kind of case, that when you're scrunching thing in your bag, it would get squished. So this worked out perfectly fine, kept the glasses secure and nice, and didn't break. So yeah, would recommend. And then I also had some kind of like face wipes or something. I personally really like to every night wash my face with a face wipe. It was kind of unbelievable how much dirt would come off. And then I always usually washed my feet as well with wipes. And then of course I had a contact lens case. And what I would use for my hands before I put my contacts in was like wipes like this, the ones that are antibacterial. I use those to like wash off my hands. If you just use hand sanitizer, it doesn't really clean the dirt off. It just kind of like rubs it around, in my opinion. So I feel like you actually need like something that's gonna wipe off all the caked on dirt. It ended up working out pretty well. I also had another little drag bag like this, and I feel like all the stuff in here was stuff that I probably didn't really need, but I had anyway because I just love carrying extra weight. One thing that I carried the whole time and never used was a mask. My mom gave this to me before I left. There's a mask to wear if there are fires nearby, so it's like a smoke guard. It's honestly so light though that I felt like it wasn't that big of a deal, but if I was near a fire, it would be nice not to have to breathe in the smoke the whole time. I did have a bug net. It goes over the head to keep away from mosquitoes. I used this definitely in the Sierra. And a little bit maybe in Oregon, but otherwise I didn't use this very much. I have extra like pills and extra contacts that was very important to have, and extra hair ties and things like that. Oh, this is a good tip. If you're someone that's prone to getting nosebleeds, which I got a few of them in the desert, I think just because they're so dry and there's like so much dirt, I don't know, I just get random nosebleeds. So somebody on, I think Instagram, recommended to me this air saline nasal gel. You like put it in your nose. But I got this, and then I don't think I had any bloody noses after that. Oh, and then I have eye drops, which I didn't use very much, but sometimes I did use because the air was dry and things got in my eyes, and contacts. That concludes the portion of stuff that I probably didn't need, but I brought anyway. I always had a bandana on my pack, and I use it as like a sweat rag and also a nose rag. I find this so handy when I'm hiking. I carried the Deuce number 2 as my travel for going number 2. I always had it in like a big Ziploc bag like this with some toilet paper, and then another bag that I put the trash in, and then hand sanitizer, very important. So that I'd always have with me. This is my first aid kit. This little bag comes in the ULA bags. It hooks in. So I have basic first aid type of stuff. I also had a little mini sewing kit, and then just your typical first aid stuff. Band-aids and like some antiseptic towels and some gauze and all of that kind of fun stuff. I did use a lot of band-aids and bandages though when I did hurt my hand, so and some of the antiseptic stuff. So actually I was happy that I had what I did have. I got this in Wrightwood after having a really cold night. I got an emergency blanket. So this goes in the pile of stuff that I didn't really need, but I carried because I just love carrying stuff. I also had on my backpack this little multi-tool thing. It has a thermometer, a whistle, a compass, and a magnifying glass. I never had to use the whistle, but I feel like that would have come in handy. And the compass I feel like would have come in handy if I got lost and had lost my electronics or something. So again, I just like being prepared. This is the theme of my stuff. Another thing that I switched from lightweight to heavy is a bag liner. So it's really good to use a backpacking liner just to make sure your stuff doesn't get wet. Some years on the PCT it hardly rains at all. 2019 was not that year though, it rained a lot. I started with a lightweight bag liner. It worked out okay, but then after a while it just got some holes. I did switch to a trash compactor liner bag, which is the same idea again. I just got tired of having to look for holes. I ended up getting a Z-Packs backpack liner bag, roll and buckle, and I used this starting, I think I got it in Bishop. I ordered it before and I was supposed to get it by Kennedy Meadows and they did not send it in time. But this did work well. And I liked it because I never had to worry about if there's a hole in it or not. And it is lightweight and it fit in my bag pretty well, so I enjoyed using that. I also bought from them this size dry bag that I thought would be big enough for our tent, and I thought that would be good if the tent was wet, we could put it in here. However, our tent didn't really quite fit, so I ended up using this for clothes, and that worked well. So for my sleeping bag, I was doing the thing that a lot of people do. You put your sleeping bag just at the bottom of your pack, and you can like get out all the air and just kind of like roll your sleeping bag up in a plastic bag. I could never like roll it up down good enough, and I always felt like my sleeping bag like took up like this much space in my pack. I don't know, I just couldn't do it. So I ended up getting this kind of compression sack for my sleeping bag. I like this one because there's like the shape of the bottom of my backpack. So I put my sleeping bag in there and then you can kind of cinch it down and make it smaller, and then it took up less room in my pack. I think that is all my stuff. I hope that that was helpful at all. Maybe you'll just take away like don't bring all the stuff that I brought. But I think it's such a personal choice of what you end up liking to have out there and what you don't. What was my base weight? I have no idea, especially because I kept adding more weight. I don't know. Coming up, I'm going to have a video talking about the backpacks, and then I'll have a video about what I wore and what shoes I wore and all of that kind of stuff. For any of you who are hiking the PCT this year, I'm so excited for you, and I hope this was helpful. And if you have any other specific questions or anything, leave them in the comments and I'll try and answer them, or maybe I'll make a video answering your questions. I don't know yet, but I just know that when I was preparing, I wanted to know all the things. Subscribe for more videos, and happy hiking. Bye.